But the other part of that is these guys, when they go out, and I'm doing the same thing, I'm campaigning and I'm going out. A lot of the reason that they do that, I think they do it, I can speak for myself, is because they're worried about the community, they want things to happen for the community, they want to help, and they're sticking their neck out when they do that. You could just sit in the audience and pop shot at people all your life. That's easy to do, but when you stand up and talk and address the crowd, you're sticking your neck out. I'm not saying they deserve $68,000 a year, but it's not a party to be a politician, I'll tell you. Don't call me a politician.
You're standing on that side, I'm on this side.
Yeah.
Okay, we have several people that are running for office in our attendance tonight, so I would.
Yeah, Mrs. Mayor, I think it's important to realize that there's elections for 3 county commissions.
Yes.
From 3 districts.
Mhm.
And you are representing the Joliet district, right? You are
Yes.
running to represent the Joliet district.
Yep.
So everybody's going to vote for all 3 districts.
Right. And
One
so
person
as long-
in each
yeah.
district.
And as long as we're on that subject, I'd like to introduce the candidates that are here for commissioner. Start with ladies first. Audrey.
I've never been accused of that before. Yeah, I'm Audrey Wallace, for those of you who don't know me, I'm running for this district. I live right across the tracks.
Bill Bullock, I am the county commissioner for Red Lodge, District 3, and I live in Red Lodge.
And you are running again.
I am correct.
Okay. Gordon.
And I'm Gordon Sarine, and I'm running for the Bridger District as well. And there's 10 of us.
You know, it's like a floating target.
Yeah.
But you gotta remember that Trump had 15, I think, so you're all set.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Next on the agenda, Karen Ulrichsen.
She's not in it.
She's not here. Okay. Emergency planning, and we already went through a lot of that with Tom, so. Okay, we're on to zoning. We have a zoning permit for Travis Trucker to replace a home on a permanent foundation over on Carvin Street.
And
Tammy?
that zoning application, I told him we could use the map from his previous one because the house is actually smaller and the house now that he proposes is a brand new home instead of the 1988 that he had proposed last time.
Okay,
Okay?
okay, and so your recommendations are
To go ahead and
To
pass.
approve it?
He's
Okay.
good.
okay.
So the 1980 is off the board
This
completely.
is
and it's a brand new home.
2018. We have a motion to approve Travis's zoning permit.
I make a motion to approve Travis's zoning.
And you guys have both been down there and checked everything, good with everything?
All 3 of us looked at the,
Alright.
So we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion has passed to approve this zoning permit. We also have a zoning permit or application for Ilsa Dawson. She is wanting to put an addition on her current building.
and if you look at the map, the addition is a second story to what's already existing. I mean, we can't. She's not building out, so you're pretty safe.
Okay.
She's building up.
I have all of these looked at the,
Mhm.
and your recommendation is to approve?
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve this zoning application.
I think what we decided is on the zoning part, we really don't have anything to say on commercial business at all.
I mean, she's not building out.
She's not building out, and there aren't regulations on commercial that you can see in the book. So it really wasn't even an issue, it's just a matter of us looking at it, and we can't enforce anything. I think she's under some kind of jurisdiction through state or whatever, from what I
I think
understand.
where
But
it's
we don't have any
commercial-
measuring to do or anything like that.
Yeah,
that
and I
can
mean,
see.
it's a second story going on. I mean,
Yeah.
we really don't have any measuring to do. It's already,
Right, so if there was any contention or whatever.
there's
it
no
would come through the-
contention about
Would
it.
go through the fire marshals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'll make a motion, we accept Melissa Dawson's permit.
No second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to accept the zoning permit or application. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, Matt, you had a question about a zoning question?
Yes, I was just curious what we found out about the lot sizes.
I believe that Tammy's, she gave the council a map with the surveys and everything on it from the clerk and recorder's office
Okay.
at the last meeting, and I believe that was, what, 50 by 100?
140.
140.
And I wanted to bring up something too, as I was notified on the phone, that it was going to be recommended to the council that the city pay for a survey fee to have that taken care of. That was what I was told on the phone. And it would be recommended at this council. So that that issue could be clarified, because as it stands right now, most probably his shop is at least 10 feet away. And I think that taking city property from personal use is kind of over the top.
Okay, let's clarify this. I have checked with just about everybody that I can think of in the state. It is not city property. The city does not own that property. He owns that property. He pays taxes on it, the same as I own mine and pay taxes on mine. He has been, the city has been granted an easement to use that property if they need to for underground utilities, water lines, and the such. On his deed, as on mine, that property is mine. I own it, I pay taxes on it.
And the rest of us can do the same thing then. We can build out in the middle of the street if we have an easement there.
No, that's not true.
There's
Well,
no
there's
purpose of a
difference
zoning
between-
committee then.
Yeah.
No sense to have a zoning committee, build where you want.
But there's certain setbacks that's supposed to be that he's not adhering to.
Yes, and there's a simple way to remedy that whole thing without setting a precedence, and it's called a variance.
Variance on city property? That's
He's
a little
encroaching
absurd.
on city property, what you're calling city property, but it is not city property
Well,
per
at any
se.
rate, there's no
So,
sense in
and
even
Hope
having
will
a
speak to
survey.
that because we've got some things coming up with having to do with this whole situation, so if you would,
Well, I could speak to it right now. You're right, you can't grant a variance to build on city property. You can grant a variance to deviate from the setbacks, okay? So what I told you and informed you is if the council wants to go further and look at having Mr. McKenzie remove his shed, or not his shed, his garage, then I would need a survey by a licensed professional in order to proceed into court and do that.
Right, I think it's a good idea. And
Even
of
though
course, the
it's
cost could be
already-
recovered.
Although it's already platted and dimensions are there? That's what I'm saying, that in order to proceed, if the council votes to proceed in that fashion, I would need a professional survey.
That's leaving the door wide open for everybody else.
Yep.
I agree.
I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. If it isn't dealt with properly.
So the first step is to get the land surveyed and then you proceed from there.
And I think the whole idea is, I think that common sense would tell you any costs incurred could easily be recovered through any kind of decent legal work. I mean, I don't know how in the world he could possibly win a court case saying that he could build on city property. And I don't see how he could possibly stick the town with the cost of the survey. In other words, he should have to pay for it himself, which he should have done in the first place. So I don't think the cost would be an issue. I don't see how it possibly could be an issue.
So in your opinion, like with the steps that we missed from the very beginning, does that leave us heavy liable on that? Like if it was to pursue?
I think you proceeded in the theory that he represented, he was building on his own property.
Right, and under the
This would be,
assumptions he would
this would be
follow
a
that.
matter of a lawsuit that I would discuss with council in executive session.
Mhm.
But that would be the proceeding.
I move that we at least get it surveyed, because like what these guys are all saying, I completely agree that if we let this go and somebody else goes, I mean, it's easy to point across the street and say this is fine and nobody cares type thing, so.
I understand, somebody can point across the street,
Mhm.
okay? But we're trying, and I think that the zoning committee has made efforts to firm up the zoning ordinances as written, so they can be enforced.
Mhm.
And that's what the problem was to begin with.
Mhm.
Okay? And we're trying to put them in place, so somebody coming along and violating it in the future, we'll have that in place. We have a committee that's been appointed to enforce it. So that would not be a defense for anybody in the future,
Oh,
okay? It's not setting precedent,
okay.
all right? Or they could come in and say, well, you let so-and-so do it.
Mhm.
Well, that's because at the time that it happened,
Mhm.
they didn't have anything in place to enforce it.
But
There
you
were
said that,
setbacks in place.
but Trudy said that that's not city property, so everybody else, it wouldn't be their city, it wouldn't be city property either, right?
Right?
But you would still have to get a permit or a variance or whatever to encroach on that property. If you wanted to get close to the easement line, the property line, or if you wanted to build over that, there are steps that you have to take according to state statutes.
And that's what he did?
No, he did not.
There's a lot of difference between encroaching on city property and building 10 feet over. I mean, that's a ridiculous comparison.
Well, there are setbacks that they're supposed to be followed, which were not followed, so he, in that respect, disregarded the setbacks and just went ahead and did what he wanted to do, but he wants to get away with it. And then, of course, like Ellen said, who says, oh, somebody drove by and they saw that, well, they told me I couldn't do that, I mean, the whole town could be up in arms, maybe only 10 or 15 people, but it could become an issue. Instead of saying, oh, well, we'll try to get rid of this, it would be easy, let's just let him do what he wants to do and pass it on.
He could have moved that easily when the posts were on the ground. I'm sure they weren't seeing it in. Could have easily moved them from this game when he was told to cease and desist. He had many opportunities even before the metal was up and
And
everything else. He easily could have
that
moved
was
it.
a problem though too, because I called him and told him at the council, and that should have been given to Hope, and she should have taken it to court and got a court order for him to cease and desist.
She would have been directed by you guys, though, right?
Right.
Okay. So that was the mayor's and the city council's ballpark. What I'm saying is, even after the frame was up, it easily could have been moved. Easy. It could still be moved. He had to cut the posts, and there'd be a lot of engineering, but he could do it. The problem is, he's probably even more than 40 foot wide. He said it was 40 by 50, which is ridiculous. Anyway, but I'm guessing, I haven't measured it, I haven't set foot on his property. Even when we were over there, I did not set foot on that place. But I'll bet you it's more than 40 foot wide. So if he's gonna put that into a 50-foot lot, he's gonna have a little trouble, and I'll bet you that little sunroom on the back of his house is gonna have to go off, because he's already got it kitty cornered so he can get maximum square foot in there. I'll bet you that whole thing's gonna have to come off, and even then,
That little porch.
yeah, and then if he pushes that thing back, I'll still bet he has a hard time getting any kind of offset at all from the alley. I mean, it'd be a real fight.
And now he's over his percentage of what he can build on his property.
I think
As far
on the
as
corner lot it's
percentage.
35%.
Right, but even at that.
Tammy?
It's 45.
Here's the problem, guys. We are the ones that get the zoning application and we have to go to somebody's house. And we have to look at something and we have to say, yay, nay, maybe, it's going before the council. And if you want us to do our jobs right, you have to do yours right. Because it really throws us underneath the bus.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're gonna
it
blame
makes
that
us look, and I've already had somebody say, why did you do that down there? And I had to say, not me, you know? But, I mean, you know, if this is going to be the deal, if you want a zoning committee that's gonna go out and do their job, then you guys have to step up.
And that's the truth. I absolutely agree with that.
Well, I heard he was told to stop building by the city.
He was.
He was, but in order to do that, we didn't have the legalities to do that. That had to come with the court order.
But it could have been done. But anyway, what I'm saying is, either we have zoning laws or we don't. And building on city council, city land is absolutely absurd. Any way you cut it. And I know for a fact something can be done about it, pretty doggone easy, because it happened in Butte, and probably a bunch of other places. It can be stopped, and even after the fact. And besides, he had a cease and desist order. It's in his ballpark. He's responsible for what's happened from here on out. He has no legal basis for what he's done. I mean, it's ridiculous. So it'd be real easy. He could move that shop, might cost him a few $1,000, but he could move that shop right now and he could set it on a decent footing. And it probably, if he did it right, it'd be better than what he's got now.
Okay, well, my understanding is first, we need to have an executive session to sit and discuss it, right?
As far
Doesn't
as
need to
going
be surveyed.
forward
Yeah.
with the
As far as going forward with it. So is that something that,
that's up to the mayor whether to call that or not.
when do you guys, you think we need to do
If we
that,
go
or-
into executive session, we have to adjourn this meeting and do it now. We can't set it for another date. Executive sessions are done during a meeting, a regular meeting.
Table that executive session till the end.
Yeah, at the end, then you can do it, because you have other business to tend to.
Isn't it possible to have a council initiative to actually do the survey without even dealing with the lawsuit at this time? In other words, you don't have to have an executive meeting right now. You just say, are we gonna have a survey now, or are we not? I mean, I think that would be a much simpler way to deal with it.
However you want to proceed. I think
Any
you have a
discussion
motion,
from the
I think
council?
you have a motion on the floor.
I mean, I'd at least like to see us pursue a little bit to it to see how bad it really is, if it is as terrible as everybody's claiming it to be, or if it's not.
Okay. You want to put that in form of a motion?
I move that we survey the property on Mackenzie's to get the right distances, I guess, correct distance to the property.
Okay, I have a motion to put a survey in place. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have a motion to do a survey on Mr. McKenzie property, and second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that
So
motion
we
has
have to
passed.
stand on once it's actually seen.
Okay. And let's see, are these recommendations for zoning changes?
These are
for you?
recommendations for upcoming ideas, kind of like.
Okay,
Okay, the first part is definitions, just that the book is a little bit vague in some of these areas and stuff like that. So the first part's just definitions changed up. If you flip your page, chapter 4, residential district A, This is 10.4.02, and this comes out of our code book. It says, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, no building with its accessory building shall be erected or altered so as to occupy more than 45% of an area of a corner lot and more than 35% of an area of an interior lot. And then underneath it says, we, the zoning committee, feel that this discriminates against those with interior lots. Percentages should be reduced or done away with. On a 7,000 square foot lot, which you're looking at the most of, like Blewett and those, or 7,000 square foot lot, that's a 700 square foot building difference from a corner lot to an interior lot. And you know, just think about driving by parcels in Billings or Bozeman or anything, and I know we're not that big, but you know, it's generally the same stick house going up right next to the same stick house. They don't chop 700 feet off because you're on the interior lot. So that's just a recommendation there. The second is Chapter 4, Residential Districts, continued, and it's 10.4.03, it's rear yards. Except as otherwise provided in this chapter, every building shall have a rear yard with a depth that shall not be less than 15 feet for lots less than 150 feet in depth and not less than 25 feet for lots less than 150 feet and over. And then I said, we, the zoning committee, feel that this is a hardship placed on citizens who would like to place a garage on the back of their lot, as that leaves a lot of driveway to be shoveled. State code mandates 6 feet in off your property line from the alley, and for this reason we would like to see that changed to 10 feet, as it would be more reasonable. And then 10.5.10, mobile home requirements. You can skip down to C, which says individual lot owners in the mobile home subdivision will be required to indicate which of the 3 methods they will use prior to receiving a permit to move a mobile home on the lot. They're talking about foundations. In this case, if we're going to do that, either you strike that, or it should be put in District A for manufactured homes as well. But I'm thinking we have to strike that because it's almost like a building code, and we don't do building codes. Okay? And then our last deal, we have the zoning committee would like clarification, as it is not mapped out specifically on the plot map, as to residential A, residential B districts, nor with regard to mobile home subdivisions.
Tammy, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe, anyway, whether on the A zone or C zone or whatever, your mobile park, okay, one of them specified it had to be on this foundation and it had to be told to in advance. Okay, the other ones had no such specification. That's the reason this came up. Okay, well, what I'm saying is, if you have a mobile home, aren't there legalities that require a certain kind of foundation for it to be on?
I think there are if it's on a private lot, but mobile home subdivisions are different. And they usually have concrete pads that they set the mobile home on when it's moved in, because if a person is renting a lot from a mobile home subdivision,
Well, they might have to move it.
they would, if they decide to leave or go to a city or something, then they move that. And at that point that it's put on that pad, it is tied down, but they are able to move it, where if they're putting it on a permanent foundation as a permanent home on private lot, then it's, you see where I'm going with that, so it's a little bit different.
Okay, I see that. Should there be some kind of oversight over A and C? So in other words, you can't just plop it on the ground like a shed.
Right.
I wouldn't think. So I would think there'd have to be some kind of regulations or some kind of inspection on how those other situations, not in mobile park, are actually, but we didn't see anything.
Well, no, it says that it's supposed to be written in there under residential B. It says it's supposed to be under B. How the cement pad and stuff, it's supposed to all come in their plan. The problem is it doesn't say that it's supposed to have that on a manufactured home. And my problem is if we're going to do it for a mobile home, aren't we required to do it for a manufactured home as well?
Depends on how you define mobile home and manufactured home, okay?
Okay.
I like what you're doing, okay? I think that ordinances need revamping. I have no problem, if you guys wanna sit down, maybe once a month and just go through them.
That's probably what we better
Okay.
do, 'cause,
Why don't we
yeah.
do that, rather
Okay.
than, doing this
Okay.
piecemeal? I think we need to look at it all, and,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of.
We put a lot of
really
time
good
into this already.
I like it, that's
Uh,
good.
But yeah, we know
Let's-
we know
let's-
it's finished.
Let's schedule something and
Okay.
sit down together and
Okay.
go through line by line,
Yeah, I
okay?
think that's a
And
good
then
idea.
come up with proposals that we can put in the form of new ordinances.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Because I agree with you guys, the ordinances in the town code, there's a lot of redundancy in there, there's a lot of contradiction in
Well,
those.
and like I said, our whole idea just bringing this for recommendations was just if you thought they were good enough to pass on when Hope was redoing the book or whatever, that they go, because we're like, what the heck do we do with
No, I
this?
can use all the help I can get.
Okay.
Well, that's
Any
kind of what we
suggestions,
figured.
okay?
That's why we did it.
When are you gonna do it?
Give
I
me a
don't
call.
know. We've been doing it on Mondays lately because she works Monday night, she's off during the weekend.
But my whole deal changes in June,
Okay,
so
well, I can be fairly flexible.
I can change.
My number's posted, just give me a
Okay,
call.
okay,
Okay?
that'll work,
I'm pretty flexible.
that'll work. Okay, that answers that then. We're on to the next.
So you're looking at, we just discussed
So
that.
you're on to, yeah,
Zoning.
these other deals are just deals that we noticed in Hope's deals that we kind of have to tweak a little bit, maybe amend or something like that.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Why don't I just give to the council members though what I have
Okay.
proposed? And I know that you have received them and gone over them.
Mhm.
What the first one is a zoning permit application, okay?
And is this the same one that was presented at the last council meeting, the zoning permit application? that you
No,
guys-
this is the one I came up with.
This is the one that she came up with.
And I know that there was some problems, and I'm ready to work with you, but I want the council to see what
Okay.
I'd come up with, okay?
And
None of this is written in stone.
yeah, no, I knew it wasn't, and that's why we went through it, because we noticed some deals that we noticed contradicted different deals,
What I tried to do
was go off the book. We
was
seen
go
it.
off the book.
We
That's all
seen,
I can
no,
do.
I seen
Okay.
that, but we have a problem with our book.
Well, that's where we're going to go and revamp the book. But in the interim,
But
Okay.
with the interim, with the ordinance 250, one of it was right, where it was wrong in the book. And state law does supersede our law, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
actually, it doesn't.
it doesn't?
No.
Okay, well, let's explain and see what we can do here, okay?
What the first one is a zoning permit application, okay? I'll sit down with the committee and we'll go through that again, but what it does is it allows the committee and the person looking to get an application, what the requirements are, what the book requires, if you will, what the code requires right now. And then they check the box where they're proposing to build, what they're proposing to build. And then it explains if you're not in compliance with this, then you need to fill out an application for variance. And we're going to be getting to that tonight, okay? As far as the interim ordinance, you have nothing in place for a variance in setbacks or in, from that in the code at the present time. The third one is a Fromberg Zoning Committee recommendation. And it has to do with what we heard today verbally. You would see it in writing. You'd see whether they're approving or recommending approval, whether they're recommending denial, or if there's something in between with conditions. And they would check that off. And then there's a separate portion of this same recommendation that has to do with review of application for variance. Okay? And that requires, and again, this isn't in place yet, but it requires 100% approval from all property owners within 300 feet. If they get that, and if the committee recommends it, then there's no need for a public hearing. But if they don't get the 100% approval, then there would be a requirement for a public hearing. Okay? But I am more than willing to sit down, tweak this a little more before you.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things, there's stuff she hasn't even brought up.
Well, and I think if they wanted to amend it or whatever, you'd have it enough and then you could go with it, but it's up to you. And it's up to these guys. I mean, there's not that.
No, I want to hear what your suggestions are.
Okay,
So we're not making
our
you something you don't want to do,
okay,
okay?
our suggestion is residential A district on that. It says you have 10 years on a manufactured home.
I caught that earlier.
Okay.
And I changed it.
And we need to change that to 1990 because the book does say 1990, you're right, Hope, but the 250 says, or the book says 10 years, but Ordinance 250 says 1990, and state code mandates 1990, and I think that's what we need to kind of.
I need to sit down with you and go through this state.
Yeah, there were three different,
I don't know where you're
deals
getting
on that.
state code.
Well,
It's a UBC code.
Okay.
annotated or whatever, I
See,
looked it
that's
up.
going to be quite different
Okay.
from your ordinances.
Yeah, but no, as far as manufactured homes
I
could go in at 1990.
Again, we'll need to sit down and look.
Okay. And then residential B district, I know that ours says 5 feet from the side and rear property line, where on everybody else's it says 6 feet. We'd like to go with 6 feet from the side. It keeps it all consistent.
Understand what we have to do first is
Change
amend the
that.
ordinances.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
now this
Okay.
reflects
That one
what's
doesn't.
in the ordinances.
Okay. Variances, we had a question is who's verifying signatures? Who's in charge of providing accurate property owner list? Those were our two, and then let me see, D, notice the hearing shall be, and this is on a variance. We would like this added to that. If it gets to the point that it's going to have to go to a public meeting, this is in our code book. It says, notice of a hearing shall be published twice in a newspaper for general circulation, in the municipal local paper record, and the first notice published not less than 15 days before the date of the hearing, as per special review of our zoning ordinances.
I'll need to explain that to you,
Okay.
and we can do that more
Okay,
in a discussion between you and
okay,
I'll explain that to you. The special review procedure is only to do with change of use.
okay.
It doesn't have to do with
Okay.
building.
We can probably skip over the commercial, but this one, it's on the application. After completing this application, it's like the second page. Submit the application accompanying the documentation to the town clerk at the Fromberg Town Hall and pay the application fee. The application must be turned in by the 10th of the month, preceding the next council meeting in order to review the council meeting. We want that put in there the 10th of the month, so people just don't think that they can plop in